Right. Prynawn da pawb, gobeithio chi gyd wedi mwynhau eich egwyl cinio. Good afternoon and welcome back. Hope you all enjoyed your lunch break. Our next session is Commercialising the Cosmos, Wales and the Space Sector. The session's running from 2:15 up until 3 o'clock. As Wales strengthens its position within the UK's rapidly growing space economy, how can the nation turn research excellence and national capabilities into commercial success? This panel brings together leaders across government and industry to explore how organisations based in Wales are shaping the future of space resilience, applications and manufacturing, from shaping new markets to ensuring sustainability beyond Earth. Chairing this panel is Joaquin Perez-Grande. Joaquin is a space ecosystem manager at the satellite applications Catapult. His role focuses on creating and thriving a UK space ecosystem that connects communities benefiting from space data, technology and supports businesses and stimulates the growth of national capabilities. Joaquin, I'll hand it over to you and hopefully you all enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And welcome everybody. So that's myself, just saved a couple of seconds of an introduction. So my name is Joaquin, work at the Satellite Applications Catapult. So delighted to be chairing this panel and thank you all for coming. Thank you for Wales Tech Week for putting this together, speakers and Space Wales more importantly. So as perhaps some of you already knew before coming in here, and certainly the introduction has just highlighted, the Wales space sector has grown remarkably over the past couple of years from advanced manufacturing, satellite data applications, and different other innovations across the whole of the country. Yet, as we look ahead, the biggest question that we are facing today is how do we turn all of that technical capability and research strengths into commercial impact, not just for Wales and the UK, but also for the global market. So today we're hoping to explore exactly that. We'll be discussing resilience, innovation funding, we'll be looking at manufacturing excellence and the policy that ultimately shapes the environment that will lead to Wales taking a leading role into this new market, again within the UK, but also in a global context. And this conversation, more importantly, is also part of the ongoing efforts by Space Wales, the national trade association for the Wales space sector that not just the Catapult, but everyone on this panel works very closely with. Actually, show of hands, how many of you had heard about Space Wales or the space sector in Wales before perhaps the conference? Oh yeah, a couple of it. Okay, well, that's perhaps we're targeting the right public then, Rosie. So the work that Space Wales does in conjunction with our Space Wales to convene and champion and develop the sector is definitely a major reason why the Wales space sector is gaining such momentum. So I'm joined today by four fantastic speakers who each represent a bit of a piece of the puzzle that we are trying to solve here: government funding, manufacturing and innovation in space for Earth and for space. So we can really explore what it takes to turn all of that innovation and scale Welsh capability to accelerate that commercialization and secure a leading role in the sector. So we have Lewis from SpaceForge, Julie from MicroLink Devices, Grant from the European Space Agency Business Application, and Elliot from the UK Space Agency. And just to kick things off, to get us all started, could you just take a few moments to describe what is it that excites you the most about the Welsh space sector right now, or Wales in the space sector right now, and feel free to use that to introduce yourself as well.
Hello everyone, I'm Lewis Damborough. I'm Director of Communications and Public Policy at SpaceForge. SpaceForge is an advanced materials company essentially. What we're looking to do is to produce materials for the semiconductor industry. We do that at the moment on Earth, so we grow crystal substrates that go into the various production processes. What we're doing as of this summer is producing those in space. So we've developed a platform that can effectively grow crystal substrates in orbit, bring them back to Earth, and then feed into the semiconductor market. The reason we want to do that is because we want to take advantage of the microgravity and the vacuum of space to create, for want of a better word, a superior quality crystal product. Using that as the basis to develop these devices, you can then create a more efficient device at the end of the process. Deploying those into the kind of large infrastructure projects, you can achieve results such as reducing the energy demand from those systems by up to about 50 to 60%. The question is an interesting one, and I like to think about that because, so for me, the answer really is opportunity, and I'm going to do it a slightly curveball here because I always like to caveat the way I speak is I'm not a scientist. I've got a history degree. I tend to reference that a lot. I tend to go back and look at history a lot. And the thing for me is opportunity, and it's the opportunity to put Wales back at the centre of things again. So for me, Wales is it's where the Industrial Revolution was born. I can argue that as much as you like. For me, that's where it was born. And it was really an expertise in materials. So copper, nickel, coal, all those kind of things, right? So I'm from Swansea, big copper town. I delight in telling people that the global price of copper used to be set in Swansea, and people sort of get very bored with me. And now we're kind of moving into new things. So it was steel, but there's obviously been multiple challenges documented with that. But there's now a real expertise here in compound semiconductors, and so the way I see that is that real engineering and materials heritage. And what SpaceForge is trying to do is take advantage of that history and that knowledge and that deep institutional kind of expertise and bring it into a new revolution, a new industrial revolution, and bring in jobs and growth and security through that. And I think that's the real exciting bit about what we're doing, at least, is we're trying to build that in Wales. I grew up watching industries disappear, and now we're trying to bring them back, and we're trying to do something new and different, and also in a way that's better for the earth and better for the planet and better for humanity. I think I'll stop there and let Julie.
Carry on. Hello, everyone. Julie Fazackerley. I'm CEO at MicroLink Devices in the UK. We're actually an American company, but we've got a small but perfectly formed company in Cardiff at the moment. We're just starting doing some of the manufacturing. We actually manufacture lightweight, flexible solar array. We're part of the compound semiconductor cluster, as well as being part of Space Wales and Aerospace Wales, Technology Connected. And it's an exciting time in Wales at the moment. Obviously, there's all the expertise with the compound semi, but there's also a lot of creation of companies. There's new infrastructure coming. There's new companies coming into the area, and I think it's just being part of that. The creation of that ecosystem it's a good place to be, and it's good to be in from the beginning to see it grow.
Thank you. Hi everyone, my name's Grant Day. I'm the ESA Regional Ambassador as part of the Space Solutions Network within ESA. So that's the Commercialization Directorate, which is how do we utilize the satellites and the cool things that we put in space for the benefit of people and planet. So we tend to fund quite a lot of late stage commercialization projects, which for me is quite exciting because we get to see the things end up being used in the real world. In terms of what excites me about the commercialization in Wales, sort of two things, and they're both quite closely interlinked, and it's all about that engaged community. So on one hand, you've got really innovative and agile companies like SpaceForge and Julie's company. Thank you, sorry. And then the other side of that, I think, is that the clarity of message that comes straight from the Welsh government, but also through Space Wales, which is that clear message on that Wales is a sustainable space nation. So trying to work on things both in terms of the sustainability of putting things in space, but also using space for sustainability on Earth, as well as then a sustainable microcosm. So I think it's those two things combined make it an exciting time.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'll answer the question first. Being here, that's what excites me most about Wales, because this is a first step. This is happening right here and right now, and it's a good showcase for Wales and the direction they're taking. I'm Elliot Thornton. I'm the Space Resilience Manager for the UK Space Agency. We cover all the threats and hazards to and from space within the space ecosystem. That covers things from space weather up to hostile nation states, to licensing, to national security, and pretty much everything in between. As I said, it's happening right here and now, and it's a good showcase of that. Wales has something that not many other places have, and I'm in a bit of a privileged position being able to see all the clusters, being able to take in all the UK's national security considerations from every corner of the UK. And what Wales has is a unique ecosystem with its agility that makes it ideal for testing new approaches. And this is where my job leans quite heavily into, because these new approaches can either be beneficial and done well, or they can produce as yet unforeseen challenges and obstacles. And part of my job is to look at those challenges and find a way how to make the space ecosystem safer for Wales.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Feel free to keep the mic. Sally, we're going back to you first. So I think that is a really good segue into my first question for the panelists. So I think I've summarized that as opportunity, ecosystem, clarity right here, right now. So the momentum's here. It's building. I guess the question then is, how do we take all of those technical strengths, all that research capability, and turn it into a sustainable, to the point of a strategic commercial ecosystem? Where are the gaps? Where are the opportunities? Keen to hear your thoughts. Elliot, if you want to go first.
Sure thing. I would say the biggest opportunity that Wales has is supply chains and SMEs. Supply chains, because we are at a foundational stage here. Wales is set to develop quite massively, especially in terms of space military application. One look at the world at the moment will tell you exactly why this is the case, but there is almost no stronger place in the UK than Wales for this and this development to take place. That's going to need one thing, which is apprenticeships, technical training, subject matter expert. And I think that's the first and foremost the best way to leverage development in Wales, because it's starting somewhere, it's starting here, and getting those skills right and fostered in Wales will both put Wales on the map for, you know, having this pedigree across the rest of the UK and indeed the world, export-wise, but also building that up is going to make people want to come back. It is going to keep that continual pool of talent and hope and, you know, opportunity on the horizon that we so desperately need within the space sector. There's more jobs than people to fill them.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. Grant, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I guess from my perspective in terms of opportunities, I'm quite keen to steer away from a specific market. That the real joy and the real benefit of the downstream side of things is actually we're really flexible from an ESA perspective. We don't like setting scope. We're much more keen on companies to be led by where they see the opportunities. So I sort of turn that opportunity the other way around, which is to say, please be problem-led. If we're solving real problems, there's going to be a market for it. The space sector in particular is really guilty of building these really cool niche things, then looking around going, who's going to buy this? So from my side, the opportunity is actually fairly limitless, but just being focused led on what are the problems that people are facing here on Earth. That means they'd be keen to pay for a solution.
Fantastic. And Julie, just wrap us up.
Okay, so I'm going to come to money, because that's what I always do.
Why not? Yeah, go for it.
Money always very important. I think to bring obviously to Elliot's point about there's a lot of SMEs around, and a properly funded and targeted programme to bring all of those companies together, and not just in the R&D sector. It's also taking it just that little bit further so that you can commercialise all of these great ideas that come out. Because the funding a lot of the time is at the beginning of the journey, and it really needs to help small companies take it to get to the end of that journey. I think those are the opportunities we should be leveraging.
Yeah, fantastic. Do you want to come in there, or do you mind if I jump on to the next? Go for it. I think you've just you heard a bit about SpaceForge, that company that may be familiar to some of those of you that were already familiar with the Welsh space sector. And the truth is, as everyone in this room hopefully will agree, that SpaceForge has become that flagship example of how to do things right. Just fresh off a fantastic Series A, the largest ever raised by a UK space company, if I'm not mistaken. That definitely made the headlines. And I think that the truth is that we often see a lot of that R&D coming up from Wales, but getting from that idea or perhaps early technology development to then access the market and successfully commercialize that, it's definitely not straightforward. So Lewis, from your perspective, what does it really take to navigate that? Is it the funding? Is it the partnerships, the policies that need to be put in place? Is it something else?
I'm going to reframe the question slightly, I think, because I don't think we're bad at technology. I don't think we're bad at innovation. I think we're very good at it. And there's a lot of measures and frameworks in place to support it. What we're very bad at, and this is UK-wide, not just in Wales, is turning that, so you turn that innovation into commercialization, as Julie said. You take technology and turn it into capability. That's something that we don't think about and that we don't do very well. And I think that is the real key, is that that focus on, okay, we've got an idea, we've got an innovation, we've got a technology here. We can get some funding in to do that. We can get grants. We can get projects that can help with that. There's SMEs who can help you build on these things. We've worked together on projects. We've developed technologies. What we then don't do, and there aren't the frameworks necessarily in place to do, is to go, okay, well, you've got this technology. How do I turn that into a capability that is solving a problem? It's all well and good having a capability, a technology, but if it doesn't do anything useful for anyone, you can't turn that into a sustainable business. You can't turn that. It doesn't provide economic resilience or security or whatever. So I think that's the way we need to think about it: is how do we commercialize? How do we turn this into a capability, and then develop the programs that sit behind that? So you go, here's the R&D, we can get ourselves up the TRL levels to 3 or 4, and then go, okay, well, what's the thing that needs to be there to push that into a commercialized capability that serves Wales, serves the UK? And I think some of that is also, how does it spread across sectors? It can't just be space for space's sake. It has to be space serving the economy. It has to be integrating space into the economy. That's what Space Forge is trying to do by coming into the semiconductor market. But then we're also looking at pharmaceuticals or biotech or alloying metals, these other potential capabilities that our technology can deliver. So I think that kind of holistic approach is what we need to do better. There's a place for government in that. So the analogy I like to use is, as a startup, an innovative startup like us, we're building a car, basically. We're trying to build a car whilst we're driving along a road. I want the government to build the road for me so I don't have to worry about that bit of it. And that is regulation, funding programs, policy, all that kind of stuff that comes into it. And then all I can focus on then is, are the wheels going to fall off my car? Yes or no? That's the way I kind of see it.
So the enablers need to be in place for that to be successful.
Yeah.
I might go to Grant for a minute just to build on that question, because keen to hear your thoughts on this one as well, from a kind of what mechanisms or what is it that we need to put in place for, as Lewis is describing, to turn that technical into capability.
Yeah, thank you. I guess from my perspective, especially if we're talking about that commercialization piece, I think the role that government can play in terms of that collaboration role is particularly funding the market validation idea. So I think having that problem is great, and having an idea of who might pay for it is great. But actually, it's very risky to go away and build something without doing that validation piece. So I think there's a really important role for government to work in parallel to fund that demand validation process in terms of getting really specific customer requirements, so that when you manufacture something, it's fit for purpose the first time, but also you're able to do that, I guess, assessment of how much will people be prepared to pay for it, at what sort of scale, how much would it cost us to service that demand, so that you can then have that overall big decision to go, yes, this is economically viable. It's worth us getting the investment, both internally and externally, to take that forward. So that if I was to boil it down to one thing, I'd say there's a really key role for the government to play in terms of that demand validation when talking about commercialization.
And speaking of demand, enablers and barriers, Julie, I'll go to you next. As you were describing, MicroLink devices, an example of a company that's trying to, originally not from the space sector, but just simply bringing that advanced technology and expertise into the space sector. So from your perspective, what are some of those enablers and certainly barriers as well to really scaling high value manufacturing in Wales, but certainly broader as well?
Okay, so yeah, we're not a space product at the moment. We are trying to elbow our way into the space sector, and it's quite difficult actually. We're more aerospace, high altitude, long endurance vehicles. I would say the enablers in Wales, we have a lot of support from Welsh Government and from CCR. I mean, the accommodation, we had a real problem trying to find accommodation that had a lab and an office that wasn't a clean room. And Welsh Government have supplied a really great building where we have lab facilities and an office, and it's for incubator companies like ourselves for in the semiconductor cluster. So we've had great support from them. This Cardiff Capital region with funding and the supply chain and these various bits that you can tap into. UK government, you can also tap into Welsh government, so you get two bites of the cherry, really. There's also a lot of, I think Wales is very organised actually, there's a lot of cluster support. So we've talked about Space Wales, so all of the like-minded companies are being pulled together. We're part of the semiconductor cluster, again, very, very strong in this area. And that drives collaboration and innovation. So they're massive enablers. For barriers, we struggle with, and I'm sorry, Grant, because I'm sat next to you, but we struggle to access the larger European funding pots, mainly because we're a US technology, and European funding bodies really want things that are manufactured in Europe or in the UK. And we cannot do that at the moment. It's not financially viable for us. So for being an American tech, it's very difficult to tap into those funding pots. And we also have sensitivities around our proprietary information and our IP, which again is a bit of a barrier. And as I've said, it is quite difficult if you're not a space company to then get into space, because I think they are a little bit risk averse, to be honest, as a sector. More so than the aerospace sector, in my opinion, anyway.
Okay. That's really interesting, and given the synergies. So probably building on that, how can we, and moving to Elliot and Grant, how can we make sure that government and industry are working in tandem to make Wales that magnet for that talent that you were describing? I think that Julia alluded there too, but also to make sure that those enablers that seem to be the theme of this part of the conversation are in place and effectively, more importantly, serving the companies that they need to serve. And I perhaps would also include in here, also from a defense and security angle, also relevant for the space sector, and in the current climate, having those sovereign capabilities, but also a sector where the barriers to entry are also particularly high.
Well, first and foremost is communication. We don't know what's going on. We're not clairvoyant. We need this back and forth, both from a security standpoint in order to assess what is credible and actual threats. That's from my standpoint, but also from an investment aspect as well. We need to be able to understand the barriers. And just a caveat for me, I'm security and resilience through and through. My background is military and security. I'm not an investment guy, I'm not a scientist. But that in mind, I have been speaking to our Unlocking Space team. We work very closely with them to understand the barriers to entry, for working with governments, to understand how best to go about funding and getting investment and things like that. And the single biggest barrier that we've come across is a lack of specialist funds to support scaling. And every time that's mentioned, as you see, I get almost unanimous agreement. We also, we tend to focus on, one person getting through at a time, which is good for security. It's arguably healthy for competition in a way, but if you've ever heard the phrase, the enemy of my enemy is a friend, I don't like looking at it like that. In the space sector, it is, everyone's success is my success. Everyone's security is my security. And it's not going to happen with dribs and drabs. This is going to be a collaborative effort across industry, across academia, across research, across funding streams for all these, importantly. My team can help out in the security and resilience aspect of this to make sure that small issues don't become big problems with implementations like Secure by Design. We had a workshop on that this morning. It went very well, thanks to those who were there. And yeah, really just working together. So this isn't going to happen without good, clear communication, first and foremost.
Fantastic. Grant, I imagine you're in an interesting position, being on behalf of a government body, but then working very closely hand in hand with industry. So keen to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, so I've got two quite practical suggestions in terms of that. One, I think one of the real benefits of Wales is it's big enough to attract good opportunities, but also small enough to be quite productive. And a really good example of that is the CRISP, the innovation network that Business Wales runs with Simon Cooper. I'm a huge advocate for that as a suggestion for companies who are looking and not knowing quite how to navigate, you got the option to register for a session up to 45 minutes long where all the funders in Wales and all the business support networks are there. And they can give you really intense guidance in terms of how to go forwards. That's something that doesn't exist elsewhere in the UK, and I'm a huge advocate for it. So if you are thinking about trying to break into doing more things with innovation, not necessarily space-based, but definitely in business innovation as a whole, I'd strongly recommend that. You're right that ESA is a difficult organisation to break into. A couple of recommendations on that. One, the UK Space Agency have launched a proposal advisory service. That's run on an ongoing basis, so the registration links on the UK Space Agency website. That's really handy because we see from applicants from the UK in general to ESA, a large number of them do struggle on things that are quite basic and could have been picked up by a check. So this new proposal advisory service is really just to do a sense check on people applying to ESA, which I, again, would strongly advocate that if you are looking to do that, then do get involved in that. My job is to help people who are new to space access it. So again, I'm keen to help, and if anyone wants a conversation, I'm happy to do so. So quite practical advice, if that's right.
Fantastic, yeah. I think those are definitely two very practical ones that I hope resonate with the audience. I'm gonna slightly pivot the next question. I hope that's not terrible, but it's just because I think the second theme I'm picking up is just investment, and that goes hand in hand with commercialization. As I think I have nothing to tell you myself about that to all of you. So if we assume that it's all about investment and that need wherever the money is coming from, what can we do to ensure that next phase is fueled by higher amounts than what we see nowadays? And more importantly, given that we're in Wales Tech Week, what can we learn from other space, from non-space market, the non-space markets, and the adjacent industries, whether that's aerospace, technology in a more pure sense, or anything else, and how they've done it that could be applied to the space sector as well. Open to go for it.
Yeah, I mean, it is about investment, and investment is obviously crucial. It's what fuels businesses. But it's a bit more nuanced than that. I think you've got to think about what can the investment do and what can you do with the investment. So private investment will fund commercialization piece, it will fund products, it will fund things that get you to revenue. What it won't fund is things like infrastructure development, which is where I think government comes in. It can be risk averse. So again, government can come in, or ESA, or whoever it may be, to do those de-risking pieces and help businesses to de-risk their products. So it's that kind of nuanced piece of, leave the private sector to do what it does, and it will do it. Create the environment. Well, and this is what government should be doing: is creating the environment where the private sector comes in and looks at an area, looks at Wales, for example, and goes, yes, that is a place where we can get these products to commercialization. So it's about things like infrastructure, it's about deploying funds in the right way, it's having the contracts available, the networks available, all those kind of pieces make Wales an attractive proposition, and then the funding will come in. And it's even little things like the way I often think about it is space by its nature is a global industry. We have to go globally to get investment. That usually means going to the US. And then you go there and say, I'm from Wales, and they kind of go, what town in England is that? It sounds quite trite, but it is an important thing to get that first positive impression. So if I go there and say I'm from Scotland, they'll have an image of what Scotland is in their head. Usually, I'm being a bit generalising, but this is my impression. And it's a bit of a stereotyped image of whiskey and kilts and bagpipes and all that kind of stuff, but it's a positive stereotype, and it gets you through the door of those investors are already in a good mood. When I go to them with Wales and it's kind of there, they probably know there's a dragon on the flag. They probably know something about the football team. That's kind of as far as you get. And it's a bit of a silly thing, but it does mean that if you can create that really solid, positive image of what Wales is, and I think Welsh Government is trying to do that and is making progress, you then go into a friendly environment for investment. And I can go and say, I'm in Wales for these reasons, that materials expertise, the knowledge, the culture, all of that comes together and go, this is why you need to invest in Wales, in a company that's based in Wales. This is what we can do if you put your private capital here. and then we can get a product to commercialization. It's, yeah, those little nuances I think are important.
Definitely, I think it's definitely not just the money itself, but definitely that credibility and that positioning that comes with it. So, Julie, anything you want to add to that? Grant, Elliot, anything to add to the question of investment?
Yeah, I guess the one thing I'd always try and encourage is obviously utilize public investment to generate private, and I think the two work quite nicely together. And we do see most of the companies that come through us have a much easier job at then raising private investment. I guess the one thing I'd issue is a mild caution is I often see proposals where the funding is the goal rather than being the thing that enables that longer term goal, and it's quite apparent. And so being focused on what is it that you want to do and how that the funding allows you to do that and how that will then allow you to attract that private sector is important. So being slightly longer term in your thinking is also important.
Just writing that down. Thank you very much. I'm going to ask another question to the panelists, and then we'll go to the audience for any questions you might have. A friendly crew, so please do put your hand up, and I think there's a roving mic that will go around. So please do start thinking of your questions. And back to the point of investment, what was government positioning, at the core of that is a solid strategy that has been in place for a number of years now, thanks to all the ongoing work through industry and space whales and aerospace whales and everyone else involved. And at the core of that is resilience and sustainability, as Grant was describing at the beginning, becoming that sustainable space nation. So that is definitely a theme, has been a theme in Wales for a while, but it's also becoming a thing across the whole of the UK and also beyond. So how can Wales take some of those learnings and lead by example, perhaps, and help build that more resilient and responsible and sustainable space economy? Again, not just in orbit, but also on Earth. Elliot and Grant.
Yeah. I'd just like to start off by the last one, investment. What drives investment? Demand. And more investment's not going to come without demand. The UK government can play a bigger and better role as an anchor customer for this, but the demand has to be there first. It's not going to advance, and the space economy and ecosystem suffers from this quite heavily at the moment because there's not a really defined marketplace for space products as of yet. There is, entirely venture capital backed, and that is what scares off a lot of, otherwise would-be investors that want some sort of long-term return. And at the moment, we're very, very focused on, R&D specifically, the short term, the changes, or paradigm shifts that you can have in this sector. That aside, I think insurance markets have a big role to play in this as well, because without that, you're not going to get the money in, you're not going to de-risk things, but with the amount of risk as an entire company's hinging on one launch, or one satellite, or one service that can fail in a moment, then these are often, too big, too great for either insurers to take on or companies to take on or otherwise. How can we contribute to a more resilient and sustainable economy here on Earth? Easy. Leverage Welsh experience. We've already heard about the pedigree Wales has in materials science and material scientists. We've got some of the foremost universities that are researching this stuff. We have an endless stream of, folks coming through industry. As I've mentioned before, it's one of the defense capital manufacturing places and R&D places, I would guess, in Europe, given its size, probably is comparable for the top spot. Leading responsible behaviors, deorbiting sustainability, sustainable fuels, sustainable materials, the hardening for radiation shielding and satellites, all of these things are, paramount to what's going to make us resilient. And then I guess integrating the thinking from where we've seen it before, through a comparable market in the cyber world that's completely ballooned at the moment. And if you're talking about commercializing the cosmos, it's not slowing down. It's estimated to be worth about 1-point-something trillion by 2035. And that's taking a measure that's conservative, because that figure has come from years ago and it's growing. So these are all good opportunities, and making sure we do this resiliently is going to require us to leverage the talent that is here. And one of the best ways to do that, I think, is the clusters. We say put Wales on the map, and I think in a large sense, having that cluster, having Wales as a focal point for a group of industries in space is fantastic. They can talk to government quite well. There is a lot of different funding streams, and it can be a little bit convoluted as to how that funding actually ends up in the pockets of those that need it. But that's a challenge that we're working on and continue to work on. So I hope that continues to grow, and I hope that that gives, well, my team especially, opportunities to put a foot in and make sure that what we have in the future is as strong and robust and as resilient as possible.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Julie, do you want to come in next?
Yeah, I think my answer is going to be very short, actually. I think for the sustainable space economy, we just have to deliver the space strategy for Wales that's been developed, because that's all about sustainability. And obviously the work that Space Forge are doing, we're bringing a satellite back, and obviously we're working with them to look at giving power and replaceable panels and things to complement that work. So yeah, I think it's deliver the space strategy.
Can I just stay in here for a minute? Just on building on kind of any experiences from your work outside of the space sector, what you think is this? Will they care about this? Is it being framed right? Any kind of learnings that we can incorporate?
I think everyone's after sustainability at the moment. It's the big buzzword in all of the sectors. You have to look at the aerospace sector. These all alternative fuels, and so I think it's the hot topic for everybody at the moment, and space should be right up there with everybody else.
Fantastic, man. Lewis, before I go to the room.
Yeah, so sustainability is a huge word, and it covers so many different things. I think we've kind of touched on it a few times in terms of making the space sector sustainable. It's integrating it into the global economy. It's it is making sure that space serves the rest of the economy, and it almost becomes a normal part of the economy. I think that makes the space sector itself sustainable. And then there's almost a bit of a feedback loop there, and you can look at, well, how can you use then space to make Earth sustainable by doing things like, there's Earth observation applications you can use to look at, how do we combat climate change better? There's what we're trying to do, which is basically lower the power energy demands, the pollutants, and everything that goes into other sectors, and how we can affect that, and also things like making space sustainable by developing new technologies like the sort of re-entry technology we're developing. That was developed with that kind of end product in mind, but the kind of happy coincidence of that is it's also potentially a route to help with space sustainability by allowing other companies to deorbit their satellites at the end of life, rather than leaving them up there or burning them up in the atmosphere, which is potentially quite problematic as well. So I think if you can integrate the space economy into the rest of the economy and truly do that, then there's lots of routes open to how we can then turn that into a bit of a feedback loop and start using space technology to actually then affect all those other meanings of sustainability that there are. There's sort of that compounding effect that could come in.
Definitely like that. I think it's something I also try say every now and then to people, that you just have to make it normal. Space will work when it's invisible. If all of you got here using GPS, no one definitely thought about the satellites, well, Google Maps or whatever your preferred provider is. No one thought about the satellites, but if it was not working, then all the bloody satellites would just be in everyone's mouth and everyone complaining. Fantastic. Before I go to another question, are there any questions from the audience? Anything that you'd like to ask the panelists now? Yeah.
Thanks. Hi, my name is Daly. I have a question on strategy, which is the piece that's sort of continued to pop into my head with some of the responses that you guys have given. So Elliot, for example, you spoke about the need for apprenticeships, skills training, the collaborative effort. in order to make the most of this opportunity? Lewis, you spoke also about needing a holistic approach, that it can't be space for the sake of space. And Julie, you also spoke then about the difficulty of breaking into the space sector as a non-space organization. So I guess it's maybe a kind of few parts of the question. First is, who owns the strategy? Until you mentioned about the space strategy then, Julie, I wasn't aware that there was one. So I guess the second part is, if there is a common understanding that this is the strategy, this is who is essentially driving it, how fit for purpose is it, and what, if anything, is missing? Sorry.
No, it's a very good question. In terms of strategy, there is a national space strategy. It was published in, I'm going to get it wrong now, 2021. And it's, yeah, it is owned by, there are individual government departments, but it is a bit fragmented across government. So you've got the Department of Science that owns bits of the space sector. You've got the Department of Business that owns the kind of industry business side of the sector. You've got the UK Space Agency, so that it is kind of fragmented across bits of government. So I think there is a piece, Elliot probably can talk to this more than me, but there is a piece of kind of bringing that all together and making sure there is coordination across the board. So yeah, it is definitely an issue. And I think in terms of what needs to be done, delivery. We're very good in the UK at making strategies. We're not so good at delivering them all the time. So I think, yeah, practical delivery, and sometimes that is a matter of getting better at saying no to things. So my experience with government is quite often it doesn't like to say no to you. It also doesn't say yes. So you end up in this kind of limbo where you're like, oh, well, what is the answer to this? And sometimes I find myself in the weird position of going to government and going, please, can you say no to me, so I can stop asking you this question? So that would be helpful. I think that's that having that confidence to go, this is what we want, and we're going to go after that. And okay, that means we're going to leave some things behind and not focus on them. And I think particularly in Wales, as Grant said, we're quite small, but that allows us to be agile. We can be agile at getting after something that's interesting and important. Hopefully that's in space manufacturing, because that's what we do. And I think there's a real opportunity then to deliver something meaningful and quite interesting and quite beneficial for the whole country.
Can I jump on that? So I'm not from the UK government at all, but I would say that the industrial strategy that they published this year is a document that governs a lot of decisions. So if you're looking for a originating strategy which dictates a lot, the UK industrial strategy is one of the key foundations to look at. Space isn't one of the key industrial, what do they call them, pillar? Space isn't one of those 8 pillars, but if you look through the detail, space underpins an awful lot of it. So if you're going to look for anywhere, I would start with the industrial strategy.
Yeah, I'll add to that space is specifically name-checked as one of the frontier industries within the advanced manufacturing sector plan. So I think this session was kind of themed as part of the manufacturing theme of the day, and probably rightly so. And on the point of the strategy, obviously there is the Wales space strategy we've been referring to today, and in the point of delivery, the Space Wales Catalyst Fund was just put together this year with funding from Space Agency to precisely do that, deliver on the strategy with a number of projects selected that will be running through to March 2026. So hopefully lots of exciting things being delivered off the back of that. I think we have time for one more question from the audience, if anyone wants to come.
Thank you. Hi. A question for Lewis, if that's all right. You mentioned trying to put Wales on the map more and like the awareness of Wales. And I just wondered, in your opinion, what do you think is the best way to do that? Because I think like Gareth Bale, Wrexham, all that kind of stuff has helped, but obviously it tends to be more on the sports side. So I just wondered, as a business, what would your advice be about the best way to do that?
It is, yeah. The sports stuff does definitely help, but it's having that really clear image of what is Wales. I'm not sure. Like I'm from Wales, I'm not even sure what that is, but it's having that clear idea. I think I talked about that industrial heritage and that manufacturing and that. So it is. I think it's that mix of everything. It was how do I think we're in danger sometimes. We silo all these things off, and we go industry is industry, culture is culture, and we keep them separate. Why can't industry and culture work together? Why can't there be cultural things involved in industry that make it uniquely Welsh? So when we delivered our satellite, May this year, it seems like 10 years ago, but May this year we delivered a satellite. It was a tech demonstrator. We invited Caerphilly male voice choir in to come and sing it off. Things like that. I thought that was quite a uniquely Welsh thing to do, and I think that gives us a real different flavour to what we're doing. People are people. They like these sorts of things. You can't just make it stolidly, oh, we're industry and we just do one process and that's it. It needs to have a feel behind it, I think.
Thank you, everyone. The panelists will be around right after we finish. So just one more minute, and then we'll wrap up. So to finish, fire around one sentence, if we can try and do that. If we were to fast forward to 2035, I guess we're no longer talking about 2030. What would success look like for the Welsh space sector in your perspective? What is the one thing, milestone, whatever you want to call it, that would tell you that Wales has truly commercialized the cosmos, to the title of the panel?
I think for us, I think we've already said it actually, is there'd be a Space Forge derived semiconductor in a lot of devices, and you wouldn't even know it was there. It's just a normal part of everyday operations. For us, that would be success.
I think it's satellites designed and built in Wales, using a Welsh supply chain, and launched in Wales.
I've got a very specific answer to my world. I'm very lucky to receive a lot of proposals from Wales, and I'm very pleased to say a lot of them are on the agri-tech and clean energy route. My signal of success by 2035 would be have a whole portfolio of case studies from Wales that are live and in the real world. And me, Rosie and John have been working hard on that, and keep watching.
Well, I absolutely second that one. Wales as a centre of excellence, a known centre of excellence for space would be fantastic. Personally speaking, I would love to see a Welsh-led space service that delivers critical infrastructure by 2035. And if you look back to 2015, a lot's changed since then, so a lot can change in the future.
Thank you very much. That truly was just one sentence. I appreciate that. I'm sure the timekeepers do as well. Thank you all for listening, and thank you, panelists, for what such an insightful discussion. I think we've covered everything that we were meant to cover. How to turn that technical expertise into real capability that can be commercialized, funding as an enabler, not just the end goal. How to translate a lot of the non-space sector technology into the space sector, while also learning how to sell to non-space sectors and making sure that there is some market pull coming from them, and everything in between. But something that I guess is just worth flagging as we head to the end of the panel is that this doesn't happen in isolation. It requires of everyone's involvement, not just the organizations in here, Space Wales and beyond, but all of you in the audience, whether you already work in the space sector or not. So if you do want to get involved, come to us, talk to Space Wales. We have Rosie, John, Deborah, and the rest of the team here in the room today. So do talk to us and ensure that we find a way that we can all work together to grow this and to perhaps realize some of the won't call them commitments, but ambitions that we've just outlined here today for the next 10 years. So I'll just say again, Space Wales website, definitely available to have a look at everything and anything in between. And they also have a brand new Welsh space capabilities catalogue where you can have a look at all the space capabilities in Wales, the companies operating in the Welsh space sector, the academics in the Welsh space sector, and as well as the infrastructure available for the benefit of everyone and anyone in the space sector in Wales and beyond. And with that, thank you to Lewis, Julie, Grant, and Elliot. Thank you to all of you, and thank you for Wales Tech Week for having us. It's been a pleasure.